Welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange Podcast. Stories by leaders for leaders to help you raise the bar on your own excellence, to release the potential inside of you. Now, here's today's podcast. Well, happy first of the year. This is 2020, and when we're recording this, we're live on Facebook. We're recording the archive, which is in our podcast, The Nonprofit Exchange. So if you're watching this on Facebook Live, you can go to thenonprofitexchange.org, and you can find almost 5 years worth of interviews with important people like our guest, Sheryl Green today. And that happens to be on our online community for community builders. So Russell's in Denver. I'm in central Western Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia. And Cheryl is in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. So Cheryl, welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange, and tell people a little bit about who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. So the why I'm doing it, I think, is kind of the most important to start with. In 2008, I went through a very difficult divorce and moved out to Las Vegas for a fresh start. Went through, horrible divorce, horrible bankruptcy, and did not know anybody here besides my parents, and ended up in a pretty serious depression. At that point, my stepmom kind of dragged me off the bathroom floor where I was, curled up, hysterical crying. And she said, go do something for someone else. And it was the best personal advice, and it turned out to be the best business advice that I'd ever gotten. And I found my way to animal rescue. I started out doing, just small adoption events and things like that, and eventually worked my way up to creating a 5,000 person event, put on a festival, and started as the director of communications and Cuddling. It's a very difficult role for Hearts Alive Village, Las Vegas. And even though this has been a volunteer role, pretty much the entire time, and I've been on the board, but it started to kind of dawn on me just how difficult the nonprofit world is. And anybody that's spent any time in there, you know that you spend half of your life with your hand out, begging for money and begging for help. And it took a while to kind of put that together. I started my own business with speaking and writing and things like that, and realized that if a nonprofit could actually connect with a business, and even more importantly in my world, a small nonprofit could connect with a small business, we could make some real differences in our communities. And that's kind of what got me on this path.
Whoa, what a novel concept. I have worked with nonprofit leaders for 32 years. Russell's got a whole history in various forms working with nonprofits, and probably spans more years than that. But I'm in the saddle as I'm the president, like board chair of the Lynchburg Symphony Orchestra. And doing stuff inside an organization is different than, I've developed my methodology working inside of organizations, and I've been working outside for so many years. It's good to go back inside and see both sides of this. And I'm pleased that all the systems we created actually work. But there's a funny relationship that organizations have with businesses, and businesses don't understand basically why it's good for business to be active and to support nonprofits. So when you first have a conversation, do you start with a nonprofit or you start with the business?
I generally start at, I can't even say that. It just depends on the situation. I was going to say I start with the nonprofit, but you know what? Now I'm starting to work closely with the businesses and with small businesses and showing them just how, going beyond the obvious, yes, you should help, and yes, we're going to change the world together. Going beyond that and showing them the benefits to their business of helping. And, getting in front of a new audience, attracting those people that believe in the same thing as you, and really branding yourself as someone that cares about more than just money.
Triple bottom line.
Yes.
People, the planet, and the profit.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, yeah, it is. So there's books behind you. Are any of those books created by you?
Those books are all by me. I'll get out of the way so you can also see Red Fraggle back there. She's my mascot. I've been writing, I started out with fiction back in about 2009. I have a degree in forensic psychology, and I never actually got to hunt down serial killers, which is what I wanted to do. So instead, I decided to write about them. Um, those books have not yet seen the light of day, but they will. They will. I moved into writing nonfiction probably about 4 years ago now, and started out with kind of a personal development book about my own experiences, and then moved on to how can I help businesses and nonprofits actually improve their organizations.
Wow. And I'm sure we can find those on Amazon or something. I will put them on the interview. And this is SherylGreenSpeaks.com. Is that your main website?
Yes. Yep. Cheryl with an S.
Sheryl, Sheryl, greenspeaks.com. And I believe it's on the page we set up for this interview. So it's not, but I'm going to put it on there. So a little more, this whole, so how does the book connect you in the world? Does the book have a functional reason, or is it just you telling your story?
Okay, that's a kind of longer story. My journey in speaking has been kind of circuitous, and I started out not knowing, really what I was an expert in, because in the speaking world, you're not a speaker, you're an expert who speaks. And I realized after my divorce and after kind of the hard knocks I've taken that I was really good at getting kicked and getting back up stronger and being that resilient, learning how to teach resilience. So I kind of started out on that path, and it took a little while to realize that that wasn't necessarily where my heart was. And I moved into realizing I'd been writing content for businesses and for nonprofits for a couple of years at that point. And I realized that I'm a storyteller. It started out when I wrote fiction and moved on to, when I was actually writing for businesses. And I realized that I could teach businesses and nonprofits how to communicate what they do and how to share that story, so that they can really better serve their clients and their donors. And one of the stories, I wish I could tell you exactly where I came across the term cause marketing. I don't remember. I suspect there were like angels, and a bright light. But when I realized that there was actually something in place for, nonprofits and businesses to work together, that became one of the stories that I recommend we tell. You've got your why story, which most people talk about their origin, and you've got success stories and how to, that you're actually doing what you say you do. But the cause marketing story goes beyond that for me. And I like to call it selling warm fuzzies instead of widgets, because for the business, it becomes less about what they actually do and what they sell, and more about who they are and what they stand for. And it kind of evolved from there. I started studying cause marketing and learned more about it and realized that it could make a huge difference in how nonprofits operate, in how businesses operate, and in the cesspool of, disaster that our country is in. Sorry, that wasn't positive, was it?
Well,
cesspool of disaster.
It's realistic, and you didn't blame anybody. You just stated the fact.
No. It's just a mess. We won't go into that. So.
I'm fascinating in going back to ancient stuff, like even in Bible, in Ecclesiastes, it says nothing's new under the sun. Back when they wrote those books, they were having the same kind of stuff we're having right now. Yeah. It seems like in all these years we could have progressed as civilization.
Just a lot less social media back then, so it wasn't as painful.
Yeah, people had a way of getting things out. So there's several points of connection that come to my mind with a nonprofit. Um, well, it's one of our guests gave us a different word. We have for-profit companies and we have for-profit, for-purpose
Purpose.
organizations. So nonprofit is kind of a dumb word because you got to make a profit, but we use that because it identifies the segment. But the business can be a donor to the nonprofit. It's philanthropy. The business can be a sponsor, which is their marketing money. The business can provide in-kind support. You know, could be printing, could be volunteers. So that people in the company might want to be in service, like if it's a food bank or a free clinic, they could, you know, go down and serve on a regular occasion.
Mm-hmm.
So we got donors, we got sponsors, we got in-kind contributions. Those are very different. And then there's making space available. Sometimes companies have meeting rooms or event spaces, or planning and implementing skills. So there's those kinds of connection areas. Are there some others? And do you want to talk about any of those and how it benefits both sides?
Yeah, sure. So I think while I use the term cause marketing, I do want to kind of give this brief statement that it's not just cause marketing. That term has really been kind of pigeonholed for, you know, the buy one, get ones, the, you know, pinups in stores, things like that, where it's very transaction based. And while that is wonderful and definitely one of the, you know, approaches that you can take, I think there's a lot more that we can do from the small business standpoint in terms of standing for a cause, so that it's not just, you know, if you buy this, I will donate, which is great and you should do it and it should be a part of it. But there's also, you know, spreading awareness, you know, sharing your audience with that nonprofit and really creating awareness around the cause. And a lot of people don't even know what issues are out there. And I don't know how this is even the case, but I was at a fundraising workshop a few months ago, and she said that some people don't donate because they're not asked.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I'm like, they're clearly not on my Facebook page because I am asking for donations all the time for the rescue. But creating that collaboration, and I will not say partnership, but creating that collaboration gives you the ability to bring your customers into that world, into that cause, and gives them an easy way to support it. And the reason I say that is because there are so many different things, and you touched on a bunch of them. The easiest way to look at that is time, talent, and treasure. Mm-hmm. You know, you can donate your time or donate some of your employees if there is a specific job that needs to be done. Your you know, and your talent as well. And treasure, you know, your money, your in-kind services, things like that. But what you mentioned about real estate, you know, giving space and things like that. And the large organizations, the large businesses, they know this. They have got this down, like PetSmart, you know, and a lot of my examples obviously are going to be from animal rescue, but PetSmart donates space all the time for local rescue groups to come in. You know, and it's no skin off their back because they had the space anyway. Two, they're getting more people into the store. Mm-hmm. You know, so they've got a higher footprint in there. And if you get a dog or a cat in PetSmart, chances are you're going to turn around and buy some supplies there. You're not running over to Petco. So, and again, they get that benefit, the halo effect that it's called in cause marketing, of we're not just about making money. We want to find these pets homes. And we know that our, our audience, our customers care about that cause. So it's something that like the larger businesses have known for years, and I think the larger nonprofits have known for years. But when it comes to the small businesses, the medium-sized, and the small nonprofits, who I think get left out of the conversation, I'm not saying for you guys, but I think they get left out of a lot of conversations because they don't have that staff. It's just a bunch of dedicated people that are giving up their weekends and, you know, their spare bedroom to work for a cause.
Well, there's another channel which I did left out. It's board members. You know,
yes.
People in the company can serve as board members.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking as you talk about cause marketing, that just jumped into my mind. It's because marketing, because it provides value to humankind, because it's good for business, because lots of them.
That was
So
almost the title of the book.
is it?
Yeah.
Really? Ah, I picked that up.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to toss the interview to Russell, who has some thoughtful questions to. This is very helpful, Cheryl. Thank you for sharing today. Russell, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking I love her approach. When you get a good idea, write a book. That
I
way,
have a book
lot
on
of
that too.
people know about it, and it kind of creates an accountability for yourself because you publicly went out and said things. So, and larger organizations do have a little bit more bandwidth on the marketing front.
Mhm.
And you have businesses of all sizes. Some of the larger ones may have in-depth plans. So talk a little bit about ways that a small nonprofit can get on a business's radar screen. And then on the flip side of that, talk about some ways that businesses can identify some of these smaller organizations that are doing work that's in line with their corporate social responsibility programs.
Absolutely. So I think first, from the nonprofit standpoint, even the small ones, you are building a business. And the small ones that survive and that eventually grow larger, they understand this. The ones that are just a bunch of gung-ho people that, have huge hearts and really want to, change the world, they're wonderful, they're amazing, they're going to burn out. If you don't look at it as a business and you don't look at it as creating a sustainable organization, you're going to fall flat. One of the biggest things that I've seen, and of course there's the whole debate over overhead and all of those things, but a nonprofit that turns around and waves a flag proudly, like, no, we don't pay anybody. We everything goes into our programs, 100%. It's fantastic for the first, 3 to 6 months, but after that, it's not sustainable. So I think thinking about it as a business is that first step. And the second one is building that brand. Realizing just like a business, you need to be raising awareness constantly. You need to be out there. You need to be building your social media footprint and building your email list and making yourself attractive so that somebody, a business would want to come and say, yeah, I want to work with you. You've got, 10,000 followers. You've got an email list with a couple of thousand people that I'd love to get in front of. So from the nonprofit standpoint, it's really just being able to communicate what you do very clearly. What is the benefit that you bring to the marketplace? Because even though it's for purpose, you're still in a marketplace. And then also communicating that and just raising that awareness constantly. And for lack of a better term, keeping your nose clean. Keeping that reputation up, because news travels fast. It really does. And there's great quotes out there, of course, none of which are coming to mind right now, but a reputation can be destroyed in, one Facebook post, one conversation, one argument that you have, or one, bad mouthing of another organization. So making yourself attractive is really about, you have to look good before you can attract someone. That sounds so bad, but building up your group, building up your brand, and being easy to work with. I talked about this in my book. We had an e-cig company that reached out to us and wanted to do, some fundraising for us. And I asked her what she needed. I said, how can we help? What do you, logos, like promotion, what can we do? She was like, no, you're fine. Just, we'll tell you when we have the check. And when they came, they brought, the comically large check, and we did the photos and everything. And she thanked me for being easy to work with. And it blew my mind, because They want to give you money. Why are you making it difficult?
Hmm.
If it's a good match, like, do what you can. And I understand, we're understaffed and some are not staffed at all. But find that person that's willing to be that point, a point of contact. And sometimes they don't want to do what the rescue or the organization does. Like, I don't go into the shelters. I don't pull animals out. I can't do it. It hurts my heart. But I can do this. And find those people. Find the people that want to be the go-between, that want to be the media, that want to be the connection. So, did that help?
Well, when you're talking about getting people involved, and I love time, talent, treasure. That's what I talk about. It's hard to confuse it. And people that will give you one will generally give you the others if you
Yes.
ask.
Yeah.
And it's astounding how many people don't ask. There's something about asking, which speaks to a concept of value, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
value is a word that kind of gets a different sort of angle placed
Mm-hmm.
upon it by a business, because what you're doing when you're trying to create something or grow something, you're actually providing value.
Right.
And when it comes to looking at a nonprofit, and you talked a little bit about overhead, people don't seem to value those types of things when it comes to a nonprofit. Businesses are rewarded for hiring marketing geniuses and coming up with campaigns and for investing in making their people better so they can provide better service. But there's some sort of resistance in when it comes to charity work to the idea of having a nonprofit, a small one, invest in these things. So how do you flip that conversation around in the minds of people that write a check, uh, as far as having the infrastructure to actually deliver value?
So the first thing that I do, I am a huge fan of Dan Pilata. His TED Talk, I think, should be mandatory, watching material for every human being. But so in my book, and I took a smart ass approach to it because that's how I am.
No.
I couldn't tell you. But I invited business owners, and I did about 3 pages on this. I said, hey, I have this great opportunity for you. I would love for you to come and work 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, and I'm not going to pay you. And I want you to bring all of your employees with you, and we're not going to really have a roof over our head, and it's going to be cold while you're working, but you'll be okay because you'll have that inner feeling that you're changing the world. And don't worry when your bills come, when your mortgage arrives in the mail, you just write, I'm changing the world on it, and you send it back and they'll zero out your balance. And I went for about 3 pages, and one of my beta readers was like, she stopped in the middle and was like, I don't really this is too long, it's too much. And then she got to the end and she's like, nope. She's like, you needed every single bit of this. I think it's about changing that mindset, one from the nonprofit, from the business point of view, but from the nonprofit too. A lot of us, we go into it and we're like, well, all of the money has to go in. My founder actually, she waited to file the paperwork for the nonprofit because she didn't want to spend that money on paperwork and on business when she could be saving a life with it. We all have that attitude going in, and you kind of have to realize that it's not self-sustaining. You're not going to get far ahead. And as Dan Pilata talks about, like putting a marketing piece, a flyer on the laundromat wall for a bake sale, and you bring in $200 and everybody's doing the Snoopy dance, they're so happy. But when you actually put money into this, and intelligently and properly, and not just throwing money around like many businesses probably do, we won't get there, but you actually invest in improving and in growing and in spreading that awareness. I think it's really just a mindset shift that businesses need to make, but nonprofits need to make first. so that they can kind of help them.
Well, it definitely is, because when you start talking about value, if you get somebody that's working for, say, a human services
Yeah.
agency, they can talk a great deal about how they sit in front of people and how important it is to move people from where they are to a better place, which is what the organization may be set up for.
Mhm.
But when it comes to talking about value, that's something that I think that nonprofit leaders need to have sort of uh, well, that's the other mind shift. They have to be able to talk about that and couch that in terms that are valuable to the supporters.
Mhm.
So it's about finding out what's the right language to use,
Yeah.
and so there's a process for each of them to get connected with one another, and it's a little bit different. So talk a little bit about the process, the business goals to find a good project. Same thing for the nonprofit, and where you see the most common disconnects for each one of them when trying to get connected to the right people.
So I just want to speak to value for 1 second, then I'll jump to that. There is that value that you need to communicate to the community, what we do for the community. But there's also that value that you have inherently as an organization to communicate to the business. Like, hey, we've got these people following us, we've got this space, we've got these events, things like that. So I just wanted to touch on that really quickly. When it comes to finding that partner, the best thing that I have seen is once you've identified what you care about, and there's a couple of different ways that businesses can go about this. There's just, this is what I care about as the founder or as the CEO, because I have this history with it, whatever. There's let me find out what my employees care about. And then there's also what makes sense for my business, for my industry. If you are, a restaurant or something, you might want to work with a food bank. If you're a housing builder, home builder, you might want to work with, someone that provides housing for less fortunate. So there's always that matchup, and that can go horribly wrong. But so choosing wisely. But then when it comes to choosing the actual nonprofit, this is why reputation is so important. There are people that will go out there and there's IRS records, pages and pages and pages that you can spend half your life reviewing the different nonprofits and seeing, what their score is and, does GuideStar like them and all those things. Or you can just put it out to your people and say, hey, we are going to be supporting a nonprofit. Which ones do you like? And I think that's honestly, for me, like, that's just the best way to, one, spread the word early that you're going to be supporting a nonprofit even before you start. So it kind of gets that word out and gets people excited about it. Two, it gets people involved. They now have a say in what you're going to do, and you're way more likely to go along with something if you had a say in it. And then three, learning that reputation. Who's actually good out there, who's doing what they say, and who's just, messing around and not going to be around for very long. So I think that's probably the best way for a business to look. What was the other part of that question? Sorry.
Well, just how should the nonprofit look? What's that sort of disconnect? What is the most common thing that they overlook in their efforts to identify the best partners in the business world to work with?
From the nonprofit standpoint, your reputation, as we've said, is important before. Your reputation is important after. And collaborating with a business that is maybe has some shady business practices, maybe they're just in an industry that you don't want to be associated with. I think, we get so excited. We're like, we need the money, we need the funding. And it's like, oh my God, you're going to give us some money. Thank goodness. Yes, we don't care who it comes from. But when you do create that collaboration, when you do work with a business, you are taking on they're garbage. Let's put that nicely. So really realizing, you know, what are those values that you want to continue upholding as an organization, and what businesses kind of fit those values, fit the industry, make sense, because they're, you know, that the halo effect again, that business is going to get something from you. So you want to make sure that what you get from them isn't just money and, you know, and then damages your reputation.
Well, one of the toughest sentences for either the business or the nonprofits to digest is no.
Yeah.
And that word is a full sentence.
Yes.
uh, I don't think a lot of people,
Yeah.
you know, kind of wrap their mind around that. So, and there are times when that's the appropriate response. And so when you're talking to either a business or a nonprofit, and that word comes up when you get that match, somebody says no. How do you help people look at that? How do you help them have the proper perspective on that in these given situations? Because sometimes people shut down when they hear that word.
Yeah. You know what, you kind of have to think about it like dating. Everybody that you go out with is not the right person for you. And that's okay. It's not, you know, it doesn't speak badly about you. It doesn't even most of the time speak badly about them. It's just not a good fit. And I think in the nonprofit world, we also have a tendency, we're so passionate about what we do. And we care so deeply about our cause that many of us will do it for free. However, not everybody cares about your cause. And it's hard to hear, but when I was just kind of hitting the street asking for, you know, small donations from businesses, I started out my conversations after a while. I learned this with, hey, are you an animal lover? Because I'm not going to waste, you know, the next 10 minutes and my breath and the whole spiel of why we're amazing and we're saving animals if you don't care. So it's kind of, you know, figuring out, like, is that their cause? Is that something that matters to them? And if not, it's got to be okay. And you kind of just have to pick yourself up and move on to the next one. And the same from the business aspect, you know, realizing that nonprofits are not just crawling around begging, that they are building their own brand and their own reputation. And depending on what you do, it might be an industry that they're just not, you know, wanting to connect with. Or it could be something you're doing. You know, it could even be what you're offering. And that's one of the most difficult things that we run into from the nonprofit side is businesses approach us and say, oh, we want to give you this. It's like, that is awesome, but we don't need that. You know, they want to bring 60 people down to have a wonderful, you know, volunteer event. And that's amazing. Thank you. We literally, with fire code, can't have 60 people in there. So it comes down to, is it a good fit culture-wise and values-wise? But also, is it a good fit? Do they want what you have? Do they need what you're offering? And if not, it's nothing against you. It's just, you know, again, it's not a good fit. So kind of, again, you know, it's all in the mindset. Like, can you accept that and move on to the next organization? And sometimes you have to fix something on your end.
You're singing the song that Russell sings. He has this point of clarity that we never really find out by listening what people are interested in and where their passion is, whether it's board members or donors or corporate collaborations such as this. So I'm wondering, talk about the responsibilities on both sides. Mm-hmm. You know, what is, you know, we get a sponsor, great, boom. Well, there's some responsibility because that's marketing money. And we have to be careful when we make a pitch in nonprofits. That can't be a call to action, has to go to the homepage. There's some, you know, requirements there, but there are many things that we can do. And a good example I refer to a lot is Viking Cruises on public television on Sunday nights with Masterpiece Theater. You know, that's a classic. You know, they show the sizzle for more information. So that's a very clear demonstration of how sponsorships really work for both sides.
Right. So I think when it comes to that, and this was something that I learned on the journey to writing the book. I had no idea. I was guilty as, other organizations putting out, hey, go buy this because then we're going to get something out of it. And I sat down. It's actually funny. I was reading Cause Marketing for Dummies, and they mentioned an attorney in Las Vegas that specializes in cause marketing. And one of my best friends is an attorney. So after I got over the, why would you need an attorney? That like little, fantasy world, I reached out and I actually was connected with him within a week. And we sat down and he told me all about this responsibility, which I don't think small nonprofits understand. That you cannot act as an advertiser for these businesses unless you want to kick off, it's called an OBIT. I think I wrote it down so I would remember. Unrelated business income tax. And I'm not an attorney. I'm not a tax accountant. By all means, please find someone who knows more than I do. But it is realizing that you can't be that advertising firm for a business, no matter what they're doing for you. So I like how you put that. You can't really have the call to action.
Well, there's when you do a call to action, it kicks in that whole dynamic. Russell knows more about it from IRS, but there's some clear guidelines. But you do present the brand, and the brand and your brand resonate.
Yes.
And there's like Viking Cruises is a great example. They're in the hour when people who can go on cruises are on TV.
Right.
And they show the boats and the great stuff, people having fun, for more information. So there's some clear guidelines there. And really it shows that this business is supporting really high quality entertainment on television and supporting this whole nonprofit. And so to me, there's a win-win. And I'm just as we're talking, I thought of a fifth different connection. There's what's called earned income, like an Amazon Smile account, or I have Kroger groceries here. We have a Kroger card, and there's 5% that goes to charity when I shop. And Walmart has it. Most companies have a residual. If you're not advertising, they're taking the advertising money and they're making it a donation to the charity. So there's ways you can register, and that's generated income. And there's all of these. There's very strict rules around. But there's lots of reasons to have conversations in business. Why don't charities have a conversation with business about any of these topics?
I think, honestly, it comes down to the perceived value of the nonprofit and their own perceived value, and not thinking that they have anything to offer. When they, finally realize, and I go through in the book, I go through all the different ways to kind of do an inventory on your business and on your nonprofit to see what do you have to give, and all of the things that you mentioned and a whole bunch more. So when you realize that value, you're more likely to approach, you're more likely to say, hey, you know what, we would like to work with a business because we know we can offer them this, first of all, the name, the brand, second of all, the audience and things like that. And even just saying, and this is kind of where those rules kick in, just saying, hey, thank you for the support to XYZ business. Go check out their website and see how they're helping us. And putting that out there, and not just kind of like, great, you gave us money, woohoo, and moving on with your day. And when you talk about responsibility of the nonprofit, I believe that one of the biggest responsibilities that the nonprofit has is to educate the business. When you see these, the pinup campaigns, the point of sale at a register, you go in, and if it's active and the cashier is actually saying something to you, it's kind of like, would you like to support childhood cancer? They're dead. They've said it 4,000 times that day. They have no idea what the organization does. So if you were to, instead of just saying, oh, cool, you want to raise money for us? Great, go ahead. Here, there's information on our website. Instead of doing that, if you could take the time to, if you have a facility, give a tour. If you do not have a facility, come and talk to the employees and explain what it is you do, why it's so important to the community and to the population you serve, and what their donation and the donation that they're getting, what it does, so that they can have that conversation with a customer if they ask, but they can be excited about it. It's not, Day of the Walking Dead there with zombies just, spouting out the same line time and time again. But there's passion behind it because they're like, you know what? If you do this, like, we get to help kids with cancer. Like, how cool is that? And they've got that fire in them. That's my example. But turning it into, like, again, not a partnership. The attorney made it very clear that you cannot call it a partnership, or, like, I think he pops out of somewhere and yells at you. But when you collaborate with someone, you make it that true collaboration. So, here's what we do, here's how you get involved, and here's why you're important.
Well, it's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so, it is important. It's valuable to have that language and that common language. And I think the point of overwhelm for both the nonprofits and the businesses is, okay, we've got to come up with this type of thing. We want to save X number of dollars on taxes. We want to raise X number of dollars. And then they just go sort of throw something against the wall to see what sticks.
Right.
How important is it for them to really be focused, and what kind of steps can they take to identify organizations that are a better fit, so that when they start prospecting,
mm-hmm.
they're actually in a better position to get a yes because they've done a little bit of homework, so to speak?
So I think one is identifying exactly what you need. If it's, $6 million, you're either going to go to a lot of small businesses, or, you're going to have to shoot for a slightly larger organization. If it is, maybe just some donations that you need, or some help, you need an accountant to come in, you need this. Really identifying what it is you need before you approach anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a huge part. And then respecting their guidelines. I learned this, unfortunately, very early. Some of the larger casinos and corporations, and I won't go into that, they don't see the value in animals. They're strictly focused, and they do wonderful things in the community, but they're strictly focused on human services and things that affect humans directly. Food, education, home issues, things like that. So when I walked in there, all excited to, explain how animals are the best thing ever and rescuing them is amazing. And of course that impacts humans, and anybody that's ever had an animal understands that, but it's not within their guidelines. So if it is a larger organization, realizing that they might just not be focused on you. And beyond that, like, if they do have guidelines, checking those out, but also finding out where they've donated in the past. What do they care about? Where do they put their money? What do they expect in return? Is this a true collaboration where they're expecting, marketing help? And I almost want to back out of that statement. But what are they expecting out of this pairing? So I think that's really important. And one of the other things, and this is why I really focused on small businesses with the book, and small nonprofits, is if you are a small nonprofit and you reach out to, the largest business, the huge corporations, you're not even on their radar. Unfortunately, they want to work with the large nonprofits. And we see that even at the local level, where there are, the biggest nonprofit in town, they're who the businesses want to work with. That's why go with the small guys. If you're a small guy, it's okay to work with a small guy. It means more to both of you. So not like I did one interview where she just kept, well, if you want to go to the big corporation, who do you contact? If you want to do this? And I was like, you don't want to do this. start out with those small businesses and start out at that like grassroots community level, because you're going to get more attention and more help. And I believe more funding for your time invested. So.
And it is. So, what are some things that a small nonprofit needs to look out for? And on the flip side, what are some things that a business needs to look out for when they're considering doing these types of collaborations?
So once you've done all of your homework, once you've researched their reputation in the community, and I can't say that enough, just how important it is to know who you're dealing with and whether they are an amazing organization, nonprofit or for-profit, whether they are an amazing organization, do other people see them that way? Unfortunately, it comes down to you can be the best organization on the planet, but if someone decided you weren't and smeared your name, do you really want to add that danger to the situation? So once you've really done your homework and you've watched out for all of those warning signs, trust your gut. It sounds, kind of trite, like to really rely on your emotions here. And I know everybody's so numbers focused, but when you're getting into a situation, either as an individual or as an organization that you are not supposed to be getting into, when you look back on it, 6 months, a year, 6 years later, you can go, yeah, that didn't feel right. That just, the hair on the back of my neck was standing up, like, ugh, you just got that icky gut feeling, which sounds very professional. Look for the icky gut feeling. But really pay attention, because I think, and I've gotten into some situations like this in my business, that when I look back and I go at I think about that first meeting and those first conversations, that I'm like, yeah, that wasn't good from day one. And you just kind of ignore it because you're so excited that there's the possibility of money coming your way. So do your homework and trust your gut.
What about the, we tend to take money from donors.
I lost sound. Hold on.
You lost. It might be me. You hear me?
You hear you? Can you hear me?
Yep. Okay. All right, Cheryl, you're back.
There we go. Now I am. Okay.
Yeah, we tend to forget, and especially in the nonprofit side, we forget the touch points that are so important, not only with the sponsorship, but with donors. You want to tell them messages. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. And like you talked about earlier, we're going around with our hand out. It's all about the money. Well, it's not. It's about the impact of the results of our work, and everybody shares in that. So I think putting together a win-win, but also having somebody in the organization that's dedicated to that messaging, whether it's any of those types of connections, you want to stay in touch.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No.
I think that is something that a lot of organizations struggle with, is one, having somebody that can handle that, but two, remembering. It's saying thank you is very easy. Being grateful is very easy. Actually looking at, this many lives were saved, these many children got shoes, these many homeless people were fed, or served. Whatever that may be, whatever that impact is, that it's not just the appreciation that keeps donors and that keeps businesses coming back to help over and over again. It's knowing that they've actually made an impact. So that's a great point. And I don't even know if I addressed that in the book. So second edition, it's going in there courtesy of you.
Okay. Second edition. So, and also, you want to continue to focus on the value, and you want to keep that thread going. I was going to say something else, but I forgot. I was touched that you said it just seems natural. So we're winding down this really thoughtful interview. And if folks listening or watching it on Facebook or some video portal want to see the transcript or be able to get the podcast, go to thenonprofitexchange.org, the THE, nonprofitexchange.org, And you'll find not only this really good interview with Cheryl, but 5 years worth of really great content with some very fine thought leaders. And you mentioned Dan Pallotta. He's got a lot of good paradigm shifts. So we tend to dumb down. And his TED Talk is the way we think about charity is dead wrong. So our sponsor for this is our own online community for community builders, which you could recommend to people you work with, Cheryl. People can give it a trial for $1. And it's how do you network with other leaders? It's kind of lonely out there, and there's lots of things we need to know. So there's more things to know than this corporate collaboration piece. There's a lot of nuts and bolts about the business of running a nonprofit. So it's step by step. And for just a little over $1 a day, you can have access to Hugh weekly for Q&A. You can have access to content about what do I do next. Never worry about what to do next again. We get stuck in our careers. How do we get unstuck? Well, we can reach out to a lot of people, but we have end-to-end content and support, live support on the Nonprofit Exchange. So, I mean, it's the community for community builders. So when you go to thenonprofitexchange.org, there's a blue button. Click on the blue button and you can join the community. And we'd love to see you in the community. So Cheryl, what's your final thought? If there was a particular challenge or tip or thought that you would like to leave people with, and then Russell will close out this really helpful interview. Thank you so much.
Final thought. I think that working together, I think there is nothing we can't do. Without getting into any government stuff, there's a lot of problems out there that the government is not fixing, and that it's up to the nonprofits and the for-profits to really get together and find a way to make this world a better place. You know, it might sound kind of cheesy to put it that way, but we all have that responsibility. And when we lean on each other and when we work together to make it better for everybody, it really will be. Oh, and spay and neuter your pets.
Well, I think Skittles will enjoy this interview and replay it. It is important. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for coming and sharing your wisdom with us. Do good to do better. The Small Business Guide to Growing Your Business by Helping Nonprofit. This book is going to go on to our list this year, 2020. We're going to have lists of books that nonprofit leaders should read that we'll be highlighting. This book is definitely one of them. There are other books out there. For nonprofits, a good one to start with is Asking Rights by Tom Rausser. So these are books that can help get that conversation going so that we can collaborate to do more good in the community. The Nonprofit Exchange is a weekly podcast where we have brilliant young people like Cheryl come in and talk about ways that you can maximize your impact to make the world a better place. We are here every Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern. And so we look forward to seeing you here at this same time. If you can't be here at that specific time, not to worry. You can go to iTunes or Stitcher and subscribe. You can find all of our interviews on the Cinevision Leadership website. Go to the nonprofitexchange.org. You can see our interviews there. But once you subscribe, these are coming into your inbox every week. You can take us with us. I know we look good, but you don't want to be watching a video when you're in the car. So you want to listen to that podcast every week. Thank you all for the phenomenal work that you're doing. Cinevision Community is here to help you. This is 2020. This is the year of clarity. And we're going to have a clear vision for making the world a better place. We can do that together. Come here and join us in that effort. Thank you for all that you do, and we look forward to seeing you right here next week on the Nonprofit Exchange.